What's up my loves? My name is Paige, this is Pages with Paige, and today we're going to be doing 7 on Sunday. Sunday is a Goodreads group created by Grace from Tree Swizzle, and I'll leave a link to both Grace's channel and the Goodreads group in the description box below. This week's topic is books that we went into blind and ended up loving. Now, I have talked about 3 of these as surprising reads of the year sort of things, but yeah, I figured I would talk about them again, as well as a few other ones that you might not be aware that I was actually going in blind. The first one that I want to talk about is Royal Assassin by Robin Hobb. So I read Assassin's Apprentice a few years ago and I wasn't sold. I don't think I was a high fantasy reader at that point. It's not what I immediately go towards, but I can enjoy it and actually consume it and understand what's happening now. Whereas back then it was like, I'm so lost. Even though Robin Hobb's writing was accessible, I just didn't feel anything for the characters, I didn't feel anything for the world, and so I went in blind, not knowing where the story was going to go for the second one, but figuring, you know what, let's just pick it up and see how it goes. I'm now a Robin Hobb stan. She can do no wrong. I want to reread Assassin's Apprentice because I feel like it doesn't deserve the injustice that I did, but at the same time I'm also like, you know what, I don't really need to reread it to appreciate it. I can look back and go, that was my mistake. I do also find that a lot of people say that the first one doesn't do much for them. So continuing on is definitely something that I would recommend. I know they're chunky and I know they can be intimidating, but I think if you go into the second one, you're going to love it a lot more than the first, especially if you read Assassins and hadn't really dabbled in the high fantasy genre. So once you get a little bit more comfortable with accepting names, locations, being able to piece it together yourself or use maps or guides to help you if that is something that you struggle with, like I certainly struggled with Priory of the Orange Tree, but like you can use those resources exist to be able to help you. So yeah, definitely would recommend continuing on because I absolutely loved it and it was such a surprise. The next one is a bit of a funny one, and that's Bonk by Mary Roach. So this is the science of sex. It was fucking fantastic. I knew by the subtitle, The Curious Coupling of Science and Sex, that it was going to be the scientific look at sex. What I didn't know was that it was going to be one of the most educational, fucking hilarious sex books I've ever read. Mary Roach approaches the topics in a humorous way. She breaks it down in a way that is digestible for a non-science brain like me. I cannot deal with sciencey science. No, I can't English, but I feel more confident in the grounds of English and math than I do in the grounds of science. And I felt that I understood all the concepts that she was putting forth, the research behind it. It was just fascinating. So yeah, I went in a bit blind in not knowing Mary Roach's writing style as a humorous scientific look. I also didn't think I was going to love it because I just don't know science. But the title intrigued me. I like reading about sexuality, sex, feminism, anything sort of in that genre, gender studies, things like that. So I was definitely curious to pick it up, but I'm surprised with how much I loved it and how accessible it was. So if you're looking for an interesting science book on sex, would highly recommend. I'll do the next 2 together. And the first is Mirage by Sabaya Dowd. I got this in an Alcrate box and I didn't think I was going to really enjoy it. I thought, you know, yeah, it's YA fantasy. They're all pretty generic at the moment. I haven't been really happy with a lot of the selections. So I went in and I'm pretty sure this was, yeah, the doppelganger story. And I loved it. I thought it was really rich and vibrant. I thought the characters were great. I thought the political intrigue was solid and I had a blast reading it. It was a lot of fun. There are some pretty high stakes. It was written in a way that was different from every other YA fantasy, and I know I'm being stereotypical in that not all YA fantasies are YA fantasies, but you understand the tropes that I'm putting at. And if there was a trope in it, I think it was done really well. The other one that caught me by surprise was Amber in Dusk by Lyra Salim. Again, I only read this year and it really shook me. I was not expecting to enjoy this. I was confident that I wasn't gonna like it. I had heard very mixed reviews, not positive ones at all, and I loved it. It obviously, like, these are both 4-star reads, they're not 5 stars, but at the same time I really enjoyed it, and for what they are, the target audience, I think target audiences would adore these. It's just I'm branching a little bit further away from YA, so then taking that into consideration that that's what this is. Reminded me a lot of The Bells by Danielle Clayton, which I adored. I thought it was fantastic with the opulence and the descriptions and just the corruptness that comes with beauty, and I found that so fascinating. So it definitely follows along similar sort of vibes, but it was stories that I really enjoy, and I'm finding out that I actually really like a dichotomy between the beautiful and the ugly, and I think this explored it really well, and the privileged and their corruption is just something that I find fascinating, which I didn't know about myself, but apparently I really enjoy it. Next up was a cute little one that I was pretty confident that I was gonna like, but what's captured my heart and soul is Lightfall by Tim Probert. So I read this really recently, but what I loved about it was the depiction of anxiety in this. So I talked about it a lot recently, but B really struggles with when in times of trouble she freezes up and she cannot sort of escape from the wisps that are holding her still, and she doubts herself. She says, you know, I'm a bore to be around, I get nervous all the time, I really don't want to do things when I need to be brave and daring. And yeah, the way that it's approached is so beautiful, and it shows strategies for dealing with being stuck. And this is B getting caught in the wisp and unable to help, and then here she is learning to let it go and actually uses some really helpful strategies which will be great for kids. So I went in blind to the story. I didn't really know what it was about or where it was going. I just knew that there was cute characters, and that's essentially what drew me in. That's all I needed to know. But I loved, absolutely loved just how wonderful this is. The story itself is fantastic. The characters are marvelous. They did not disappoint, and then having that representation in there was absolutely fantastic, and it just makes me smile knowing that books like this exist in the world for those that need it. Next is another recent read, and that is The Wizard of Oz, or The Wonderful Wizard of Oz by L. Frank Baum. I was apprehensive. A lot of classics, a lot of children's classics, I don't like anymore. Rereading them as an adult, it's like, you've got some very problematic content in you, and I don't like this. But I adored this. I know that Baum himself has a lot of issues. I know things that he has said are problematic, and the way that he's done things has been, but the story itself, absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed it. It was a little bit darker, but not beyond the stretch of imagination dark, and it just really did things well. So yeah, very pleasantly surprised with this. The story, I suppose I didn't go in blind because I knew about The Wizard of Oz from the movie, but it does take a little bit of different routes, and it just explores the characters in different ways, and I really enjoyed that. And then finally, one of my biggest surprises of last year that I went in blind not knowing anything about, not going into this genre, not really knowing much about, and that is I Let You Go by Claire McIntosh. I've talked about this a lot. It is sitting on my favorite shelf at the moment because I adored this. I thought that the twists and turns were really interesting. I thought the character development was fascinating, and overall it was just a really fantastic, solid read. I am now wanting to dabble more in the thriller genre. Not much. I still chicken shit, I know. But I feel confident in picking up Claire McIntosh's works. I did get the second one, or another one by her, because I want to read it and I'm really curious. My mum has read both now and she really enjoyed both. And she was very apprehensive about this because it starts with a child being hit by a car and dying, which it's so challenging, and my mum hates when children die. For her, as a parental figure, it just is something that she's not prepared to read about, and I told her to start it. I didn't tell her that because I knew she wouldn't pick it up, and I said to her, there is something in here, it is at the beginning and it might be too much for you. If it is, stop, it's okay, but I just want you to give it a chance first. And she devoured it. So yeah, she really enjoyed this. Didn't love the ending as much, and I don't think she enjoyed the ending of the other one as well, but for someone that's a complete newbie to the thriller mystery sort of things, I found it really fascinating. The villain in this is a fucking dickhead, and I really enjoyed seeing such an asshole of a character that I could root to hate. So these are just 7 books that I went in mostly blind and ended up really loving. I think it's really challenging, like going into a book blind and you just don't know what's gonna happen. But I'm glad that I loved all of these, and I love that the book boxes took me by surprise, because you get it and you want it to be good, and then you hear mixed reviews and you're like, ah shit, and then you love it anyway. So let me know in the comments what's a book that you went in blind and ended up absolutely loving. I would love to get some more recommendations. If you do want to give us a little bit more of what it's about, or if you recommend just going in straight blind, let us know. If you like this video, feel free to give it a big thumbs up, and if you'd like to see more of this mess, feel free to subscribe, and I'll hopefully see you in my next video. Bye!